Well, although it doesn't really feel like it outside, we're getting ready for Christmas. We're in the middle of the Advent season. We've been singing carols, having our children's programs, eating way too many cookies, and celebrating the season. During Advent, we focus on Christ coming. We celebrate Jesus being born on Christmas. And we're not just celebrating the birthday of a great leader or a great teacher. We're celebrating the miracle of the incarnation, that God became flesh and dwelt among us. We reflect that Jesus is fully God and fully human, and we hold both of those together because Scripture affirms both. And as we do so, I recently read a work by a patristic, an early church leader named Gregory of Nazianzus. He was a pastor and a archbishop in Constantinople. He ministered towards the end of the 4th century, during the 300s, and so he lived at a time when the emperor was hostile to the faith. He lived at a time when there were debates about the nature of Christ. One of the big early heresies was called Arianism, that taught that Jesus was the first of God's creation. He was above us, but yet he was not fully God. And so Gregory was one of those who was teaching the Orthodox faith of understanding that Jesus is fully human, yet fully God, that he is our mediator, that we can relate to him as human, yet he redeems us because he's God. And we confess this at times in worship when we have our Nicene Creed and we talk about Jesus being begotten, not made. We're affirming that he has a relationship of the Son to the Father, yet he was not created. And we recognize that he was co-eternal with the Father. There never was a time he didn't exist. So anyway, I've been reading Gregory, and he has this wonderful passage in what's called the Theological Oration number 29, which I think is just an awesome title for a sermon. Here's Gregory on what it means for Jesus to be both God and man. As man, he was baptized, yet he absolved sins as God. He needed no purifying rites himself. His purpose was to hallow the water. As man, he was put to test, but as God, he came through victorious. Yes, bids us be of good cheer because he has conquered the world. He hungered, yet he fed thousands. He is indeed living heavenly bread. He thirsted, yet he exclaimed, "Whoever thirsts, let him come to me and drink." Indeed, he promised that believers would become fountains. He was tired, yet he is the rest of the weary and the burdened. He was overcome by heavy sleep, yet he goes lightly over the sea, rebukes winds, and rescues the drowning Peter. He pays tax, yet he uses a fish to do it. Indeed, he is emperor over those who demand the tax. He is called Samaritan, demonically possessed. But he rescued the man who came down from Jerusalem and fell among thieves. Yes, he is recognized by demons, drives out demons, drowns deep a legion of spirits, and sees the spirit of the prince of demons falling like lightning. He is stoned, yet not hit. He prays, yet he hears prayer. He weeps, yet he puts an end to weeping. He asks where Lazarus is laid. He was a man, yet he raises Lazarus. He was God. He is sold, and cheap was the price, 30 pieces of silver. Yet he buys back the world at the cost of his own blood. A sheep he has led to the slaughter, and yet he shepherds Israel, and now the whole world is well. He is a lamb who was dumb, yet he is word, proclaimed by the voice of one crying in the wilderness. He is weakened, wounded, yet he cures every disease and weakness. He is brought up to the tree and nailed to it, yet by the tree of life he restores us. Yes, he saves even a thief crucified with him. He wraps all the visible world in darkness. He is given vinegar to drink and gall to eat. And who is he? Why, one who turned water into wine, who took away the taste of bitterness, who is all sweetness and desire. He surrenders his life, yet he has power to take it again. Yes, the veil is rent, for things of heaven are being revealed. Rocks split, and dead men have an earlier awakening. He dies, and he vivifies, and by death destroys death. He is buried, yet he rises again. He goes down to Hades, yet he leads souls up, ascends to heaven, and will come to judge the quick and the dead, and to probe discussions like these. If the first set of expressions starts you going astray, the second takes your errors away. I love reflections on the ironies and paradoxes of Christ and who he is, of how he redeems us. And there's a couple of things he closes with, just want to comment on. The first is he states that Jesus comes again to judge the living and the dead. And he reminds us that even discussions like these are going to be judged, be examined. It's a good reminder that as we think about who Jesus is and as we talk about who Jesus is, that what we believe is that he is one who will come again to establish his kingdom, who is going to judge every thought, every word, every action. And so when we reflect on who Jesus is and when we think about these things, it's not just some sort of mind game that we play and just some kind of playing with words. It's not us coming up with what we think and our opinion. It needs to be a realization of this man is making claims, and do we trust those claims? Do we believe he is who he said he is? Or do we think that we can define him as we want to? He is going to come and judge us and judge our thoughts of who he is. And so we want to make sure that we get those right. For if he is who he says he is, which I am completely convinced, then we recognize he is one who is going to come and to judge. But he's also the one who redeems, who comes in humility to save us and to offer grace and forgiveness, that we hold these two together and we recognize, as Gregory says, that we have to hold both his divinity and his humanity together. That if you if you just hold to one, if you just say he's human without recognizing his divinity, or just his divinity without recognizing his humanity, then you go astray. That we affirm both, and we recognize that, yes, he was fully human. He was hungry. He was thirsty. He was tired. At the same time, he is God, who is the bread of life, who is the living water, and who is the rest for us, because he is gentle and lowly. His service is joy, and submission to his yoke is rest and an easy burden. So as we gather around and eat more and sing more, and as we remember the story of Jesus, we recognize who he is and we celebrate his coming. I hope you have a Merry Christmas, and that you might know the peace offered to us by this God-man, Jesus Christ.